PrimeTime local news, serving the Lakeland and Midwest regions.
There are 74 new cases of COVID-19 in Saskatchewan. 5 of those are in the Northwest Zone, which includes Lloydminster and North Battleford. 22 cases were added in the North Central region, 18 in Saskatoon. 858 cases are considered active, 48 of those in our area. 34 people are in hospital, including 2 in the Northwest. 7 people are in intensive care. 14 more people have recovered. Some new rules take effect in Alberta today that should make it easier for parents as they do their daily check on their kids to see if it's safe to send them to school or daycare. The province has removed some common symptoms that require children with no known exposure to COVID-19 to self-isolate, such as a runny nose and a sore throat. The key symptoms like a fever, cough, or shortness of breath remain, but a new one, loss of taste or smell, has been added to the list. A child with those symptoms must self-isolate for 10 days or have a negative test and no symptoms before they can resume normal activities. Cold Lake is the latest Alberta city to discuss a mandatory mask bylaw, defeating the proposal by a narrow 4-3 vote. Eric Bay has more.
The proposed bylaw would have made masks mandatory for those above the age of 10 within the city of Cold Lake. For council members who voted against the bylaw, including Mayor Craig Copeland, masks are the province's jurisdiction.
The talk was more about having individual rights, not interfering with people's rights, and others like myself felt that it's a provincial matter that the province needs to step in, and if they want to enforce a mask bylaw throughout Alberta, they should do so. That's their sandbox.
The city of Lloydminster has continued to encourage the use of masks in public places and have not considered making them mandatory. Other municipalities' protective measures were explored by Cold Lake City Council when considering the bylaw.
The municipalities have been diving into the mask bylaw throughout Alberta, and some of course have brought in a mask bylaw, some haven't, encouraging everybody to practice social distancing and stay home if you're sick.
Copeland says the severity of COVID cases in Cold Lake also factored into the decision.
Encouraging thing about COVID in Cold Lake is that not one patient as of last week has come to the Cold Lake Hospital. So, people are recovering from the virus, and let's hopefully we'll get a vaccine soon.
Edmonton and Calgary have made masks mandatory in public spaces. Eric Bay, PrimeTime Local News.
The Lloydminster District Co-op officially kicked off their annual holiday program. This is the 6th annual Spread a Little Love This Christmas program to help local seniors in the community. Up to 700 seniors will receive a gift through this program. Gifts will be quarantined before being delivered. The program aims to help the community get in touch with seniors.
The one thing we've found year over year is that our senior citizens just are looking for connection with the community. Many of their gift requests are very conservative, I might say. Many of them are under $20, very affordable for families to be able to pick up and connect.
Hawes says that now more than ever is a time where seniors are counting more on the community to show how loved they are.
There's some on there that talk about things like just wanting a new coffee mug. They're very, very, they're heartfelt, and they are conservative, and so, you read a lot of these, and a lot of times it's not hard to draw connection even for yourself.
Anyone who wants to take part can grab an ornament from the Lloydminster District Co-op Marketplace or any of the gas bars and drop off the gift at any of the locations. The gifts will be delivered in early December. A teacher at the Lloydminster Catholic School Division was recently recognized for the St. Thomas More College Distinguished Alumni Award. We spoke with Richard Lucas about this honor. Richard Lucas has been working with the Lloydminster Catholic School Division for over 30 years. He is now retired, working as a deacon, but he comes back to help with the schools. When he found out he won the award, he wasn't expecting it.
When I got the call officially from St. Thomas More that they'd actually accepted me and promoted me as my name as being the male recipient of the alumni, I was quite thrilled. I was just having a little campfire and hadn't heard anything, so I thought, okay, well, I guess maybe not. But it was so yeah, very excited.
The award recognizes the graduate's lifetime accomplishments and achievements. He was nominated for the award by his peers and colleagues. To Lucas, this was very touching.
It made me cry, actually, in June when, I'm not a crier, but when people started talking and people started writing letters about my retirement, it brings tears to your eyes because, you hear it a little bit in bits and pieces through the years, but it's never been about the feedback. It's always just about doing what's right? But then hearing it from kids, it humbles you.
During his time at LCSD, Lucas has worked in many different fields, and the other staff at the division have noticed how big of an impact he's made.
Rick is such a well-rounded individual, but he's been so much part of our fabric that we definitely have even noticed, though he's retired, we still call on him for things, and we're also very happy to see him around most days, so that's great. He's really contributed a lot from the faith world on leadership there, but also integrating faith into so many other pieces.
St. Thomas More plays an important part in Lucas's family's history, which makes the award even more special.
I met my wife there, and my daughter is currently sitting at the college as a student rep on a number of different different councils and different groups, student groups. So it's nice that I passed on the torch from my dad to me to her, and just that legacy piece that that we have intergenerational Lucases at St. Thomas More.
A ceremony for the award will be held in the new year. November is Family Violence Prevention Month, and the Lloydminster Interval Home Society kicked off the month with a focus on local statistics. Jace Mackey has the story.
The Lloydminster Interval Home Society is looking to raise awareness and educate the community about family and gender-based violence. And this month, they hope to correct some misconceptions.
Saskatchewan has the highest rate of violence, and Alberta the third rate of violence. So being in both of those provinces, of course, we see the same effects in the city of Lloydminster, and that's, I think, one of the biggest misconceptions that we come up against is that domestic violence doesn't happen here, or it's to certain cultures or to certain socioeconomic or barriers. And the fact remains that domestic violence can happen to anyone.
The Interval Home will be hosting various activities to inform residents on different aspects of family violence. On November 5th, the virtual Breakfast with the Guys is taking place, giving men in the community a chance to hear from the Executive Director for Next Gen Men.
It's going to be an amazing speaker that's coming. He's done presentations all over and really kind of building up programs for men and boys to learn how they can handle their own pain and handle understanding how they can prevent harm, whether it's just supporting other men in the community and how to be that person, or even just themselves if they are having troubles.
The COVID-19 pandemic has increased stress for many, and that increased stress can lead to an increase in family violence.
So we've been at this, 8 months now, and people are tired, people are stressed, people are frustrated and ready to get on with life. So anytime you kind of increase stress in an already tenuous kind of situation, you will see the release valve come off, and that could mean domestic violence in the home. So we are anticipating, again, another spike in cases and in complexity. So we are preparing for that.
With more awareness of the issues in our community, organizers want to empower people to lend a hand and support those in need, even if it's from a distance.
It impacts everybody. So the first thing is to accept that. And the second thing would be to learn about the resources in your community, to, in the event that somebody does come and disclose or say, I'm really struggling in this way, that, your response would be, how can I help you? And hey, I know of a place that I can, send you or give you the information for, which would be the Lloydminster Interval Home Society or the RCMP or any other helping organizations in the community.
Jace Mackey, PrimeTime Local News.
It is time now for this week's retrospect. Here's Blake Nath.
This week in retrospect, in 1995, a local collector shows off her antique store.
A history lesson.
And it's interesting for a lot of the younger ones come in and say, what is this or what is that? Because they were not born at the time that was being used. And they're really interested They really want to know what it's about. Maybe they've heard their grandparents talk about it or their parents talk about it, and so they have a little bit of information, but they really want to see the actual idea, the item, and touch it and see how it works.
Webster's defines the word antique as something that was made over 100 years ago, but Buzik feels the word really has no definition.
I'm saying anything that's from your past, whether you were born in 1980 or 70 or in 1940, something in your past and it brings you a good memory, or you can relate to that item. It is an antique. It's from a different decade. It's no longer being made. That, to me, you can call it antique or you can call it collectible, and it doesn't really matter as long as it pleases you and it brings you some kind of enjoyment.
And in 2000, we take a look at how children in the border city celebrated Halloween.
Originally brought to North America from Ireland in the late 1800s, Halloween traditions have evolved from Celtic New Year celebrations to mainstream pranks, costumes, and candy. While many kids take part in the festivities, some people choose to avoid the celebrations altogether. This year, Jack Kemp School made some adjustments to accommodate all students.
What we've chosen to do is, because some families don't celebrate Halloween, we've chosen to invite students to dress up or not dress up, and then just plan activities rather than traditional Halloween activities. We've organized all the students into groups, and there's activities planned in various places in the school, and British Bulldog, different games and activities.
This has allowed all of the students to participate with no one being left out.
And that's it for this week in retrospect.
Retrospect this week is brought to you by Webb's Ford. Worth your while to drive the extra mile. Webb's Ford in Vermilion.
Now our Connor channel, take a look at your weather forecast.
Thanks a lot, Jasmine. As you can see right now, we are in very warm temperatures right now as we're just shy of 20 degrees right now. We had lots of sun and a little bit of cloud coverage throughout the day. Of course, we had a nice day yesterday as well, but today really kind of tops it all off there at that high of 18 degrees with some winds, though, kind of picking up a little bit from that southwest there at just shy of at 15 kilometers an hour there. Now, as we look at some other temperatures in the area, also fairly warm in our region. We see 17 in Vermilion, 14 out in Vegreville, and 13 in Edmonton up north. Cold Lake and Bonnyville kind of sitting at 10 and 11 degrees. We see Provost and Macklin in the 20s there at 24 and 23 degrees. 15 degrees out in Maidstone in North Battleford. A little bit colder up north as we see Meadow Lake at 6 degrees and Isla Cross and Green Lake at 8 degrees. So here's a look at what we could see for tomorrow when it comes to the school day forecast. We'll see a little bit of a cooler start to the morning at 1 degree. Then by the time it's recess, 5 degrees, 8 degrees around lunchtime, and then we'll still have another double-digit day around by the time school's out with that high of 10 degrees and a little bit of cloud, a little bit more cloud coverage coming in throughout the day there. Now, as we look in North Battleford overnight, -1 going into 12 degrees tomorrow for the daytime high with some cloud coverage continuing on there. And as we look into Cold Lake, we see 10 degrees, as I mentioned right now, and overnight fairly warm at 0 right at for overnight, excuse me, and then 8 degrees throughout the day tomorrow with mostly sun and a few clouds. And for us here in Lloydminster, we'll still be in the double-digit territory as in the next couple of days after that. Over the weekend, we could be welcoming back some very cold temperatures. So 1 degree overnight for us tonight, and then tomorrow 11 degrees tomorrow with a little bit more cloud coverage throughout the day. So here's what we could see for the next 3 days. Some showers expected there for Wednesday with a 56% chance there with that high of 10 degrees and another 10-degree daytime high on Thursday with a little bit clearer skies and mostly and a little bit of cloud coverage throughout the day there. But that's a look at your weather forecast for now. We'll have more prime time local news coming up after the break.
As the NFL heads get set to head into Week 9 of their season, Evan Kenny and Eric Bay break down all the latest news from around the league.
Well, another week of NFL action. Joining me to break it down is Eric Bay. Eric, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, obviously tons of stuff here happening the last little bit for sure.
Yeah, first things first, Eric, I want to talk about the Miami Dolphins and Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, first start, he gets his first win, 28-17. Now, while those scores are pretty, His stats, not so much. Why don't you just go touch into that a little bit for us?
Yeah, obviously just over a 50% completion rate. He did throw a touchdown pass, but also only threw for 93 yards. So really not the focal point of the Miami Dolphins team this week. But I mean, for a rookie QB making his first start, I don't think you can really complain much. I mean, you don't want those turnovers, those bad decisions, and obviously no picks on the resume for this week. So I think when obviously they didn't win because of Tua, they didn't lose because of him either. So I think really it's something pretty positive and something also that can be built upon here as we move further into the season.
Yeah, what I like to see, although he did not perform, up to that caliber we were used to seeing him at Alabama perform, it was a great team effort. They scored in multiple different ways. The defense got a fumble recovery for a touchdown. Special teams got a punt return touchdown. And so it's nice to see the team helping him out and be able to grind out that first win. We were talking about it when Fitzpatrick was getting taken out of that starting position. We were wondering, how is this going to ruin team chemistry if it was going to ruin it? And it seems like it hasn't. It seems like people really stepped up in order to help them and in order to help the Dolphins take that second seed in the East, rather. Eric, just touching on another game now, the Pittsburgh Steelers still going undefeated as they beat another great team in the Baltimore Ravens, 28-24, close one there. How scary are these Steelers right now?
I think their defense is terrifying, really, when you look at it. I know they did give up their fair share of yardage against the Ravens, but I mean, this is a team led by Lamar Jackson, who is the reigning NFL MVP. They put up a ton of yards against anybody. So really, when you look at the whole, I think it's a very impressive start. I mean, TJ Watt is looking at possibly another Defensive Player of the Year. He's been outstanding, really just getting pressure on that quarterback. Their defense has really stepped up, looking like the defense they had even, 10 years ago when they were going to their last few Super Bowls. And on the offensive side of the ball, Ben Roethlisberger, he's back. He's healthy. That's huge. He is making maybe a few too many, not necessarily mistakes, but pretty cavalier plays in the pocket, especially when he's under pressure, which does concern me, especially when you get down further into the season when those turnovers do matter. But I mean, you look at him, Chase Claypool, we've talked about him, obviously. Mapletron, he's come in and done very well as kind of their Swiss Army knife guy, taking a few running plays as well for touchdowns, and he's been able to be the second guy next to Juju Smith-Schuster, which is really what they lack. So really, this is a very good team, I would say, all around, and especially in a year where anything can happen. They've looked the best, I would say, week in, week out of any team in the NFL so far.
Now, Eric, you mentioned that their defense did give up a little bit of yards against those Ravens, but when you're playing against a team that does have Lamar Jackson and you still only hold them to 24 points, do yards really matter all that much?
I mean, you'd like it a little tightened up, especially as you move down to the season. But again, you mentioned that, and they've been getting turnovers. That's the big thing. So yeah, yards, not the worst thing. The bottom line, as you say, is that scoreboard. But I do think they will want to tighten it up, especially once we do get further into the back half of the season and then into the playoffs.
Now, eBay, the trade deadline is coming up here, and while the NFL trade deadline in the past hasn't really been like other major sports deadlines where you see a lot of those all-stars going back and forth, in recent years, it has started to transition into that way. Do you think we could see any big names on the move?
It'll be interesting. I think obviously with COVID, a lot of teams are trying to get their stuff done even before the deadline, just a couple, maybe days before, even just because, there could be complications with getting stuff in before that deadline. But I do think we might see a few moves. I think the big guy everybody's talking about right now is Stephon Gilmore. Obviously, Bill Belichick is not afraid to make some moves, even if it is shipping out a guy who was a Defensive Player of the Year. So I really think that a guy like him could be on the move. And we've also seen rumors too. He's put his house up for sale in the New England area. So I don't know if that's reading too much into it or if he's just looking at a different real estate opportunity, but he's definitely one name we could see move.
And if he is on the move, I'm sure, almost every team in the NFL wouldn't mind having a guy like him on their roster. Now, quickly, Eric, we are about halfway through the NFL season. Who are your front runners as Super Bowl contenders?
I think it's got to be the Steelers. We've talked about them. They're obviously still undefeated, but again, they've looked the best week in, week out. Another top team in that conference has been the Titans. They've lost back-to-back games now, so that's a little worrisome. The Chiefs are always a big team. They're still rolling as well, I think, despite that loss to the Raiders. And then I think on the other side of the ball in the NFC, I think it's got to be the Seahawks. Again, Russell Wilson, he's looking towards his first MVP. I think he'll get that very easily so far if he continues to play like he did this first half. And I do think the Packers, despite losing losing to the Vikings this week. Divisional matchups are always tough. So I think the Packers, again, Aaron Rodgers has continued to perform. So I think we will see some pretty good teams here down the stretch. But those are kind of my four, I would say, at this point.
Eric, it's always a pleasure getting to chat with you. Thank you for joining me.
For sure.
A committee of Humboldt Broncos parents is working on plans to build a permanent memorial at the site of the horrific 2018 bus crash. A makeshift memorial that began to grow days after the crash is now weather-beaten. The mayor of nearby Tisdale, Saskatchewan says the incident has had a lasting impact on the community, for hockey is a way of life. 16 people were killed and 13 others were injured when a transport truck slammed into the bus carrying members of the hockey team. Now our Connor Chan will take a look at your weather forecast.
Thanks a lot, Jasmine. Looking at temperature, still sitting pretty warm right now. We dropped down a couple degrees right now. We're sitting at 13 right now, as we also see 13s out west in Edmonton at the Basket and Red Deer. We see warmer in Edson at 19, 15 degrees in Rocky Mountain House, and then 12 degrees out in Jasper. We look in North Battleford and Saskatoon. They also see 13 degrees. Up in Cold Lake, we see a little bit cooler at 8. Meadow Lake at 6 right now, and then 10 degrees in Prince Albert and 11 in Melfort. Now, as we look over into northern Alberta and Saskatchewan, minus 10 degrees, in La Loche and Buffalo Narrows. We see 6 degrees out in La Ronge and 2 out in Flin Flon, along with South End. And then we get to the farther north, minus 7 in Uranium City, and then minus 9 in Stony Rapids, with minus 2 right now in Wollaston Lake. Looking in northern Alberta, Grand Prairie pretty warm, sitting at 15. Peace River at 14. We see Fort Chipewyan getting a little cold, sitting at minus 2, and then minus 5 up in High Level, and then 8 degrees, for Slave Lake. Now here's what we see in southern Alberta and Saskatchewan. Pretty warm days in Medicine Hat and Lethbridge, both sitting at 20 degrees each. 19 in Calgary and 16 for Coronation, and then 13 degrees out in Banff as well. We see 16 in both Kindersley and Swift Current and Estevan as we look into southern Saskatchewan. Temperatures right now 18 out in Moose Jaw, with 15 in Regina, and then 13 degrees out in Yorkton. Now as we look across the rest of the country, some areas are fairly warm and some are a little bit cooler than others. Winnipeg sitting at 13 right now, with some cloud coverage going into the evening. Minus 2 in Quebec City, with 5 in Toronto, some cloud coverage. We see 14 in St. John's and 4 degrees in Halifax right now. Of course, Edmonton sitting with some cloud coverage at 13 right now. For 13, and also we see in Vancouver, and 12 degrees up in Yellowknife, where a little bit of flurry activity is happening right now. Minus 16 up in Whitehorse right now. Now, as we look at what we could see for tomorrow, we'll still be in double-digit temperatures, but it's not until we get to the weekend we're going to start to see fairly cold days ahead for us once again here. But 11 degrees tomorrow nonetheless expected for the daytime high, as well as in Vermilion, Marwayne, Vegreville, up in Cold Lake and Bonnyville. Could see 8 degrees tomorrow. Lac La Biche at 9. Wainwright at 12 degrees, along with Edmonton, 14 and 15 for both Provost and in Macklin. We see 12 degrees in North Battleford for tomorrow. We also see 9 in Meadow Lake and St. Walburg as well, with 6 degrees up in Isle of Cross, and then 10 in Green Lake. Now here's a look at the next 7 days. 10 degrees on Wednesday, Thursday, with some showers possibly on Wednesday. Minus 5 on Friday. Of course, this is where I talked about how lots of cold temperatures coming back to the city here. Minus 5 on Friday. Minus 8 on Saturday at that low of minus 12, as well as on Sunday there with that high of minus 6, and minus 7 the high there for Monday. And of course, it is getting a little bit cooler, so those times are, with the wind chill, could be a little bit colder. But that is a look at your 7-day for now. We'll have more prime time local news after the break.
We're speaking with Jacqueline Weed with Big Brothers Big Sisters of Lloydminster today. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very good. I wanted to mostly talk about the Christmas shopping table that started today until November 27th. How many years has Big Brothers and Big Sisters done this?
I believe this is our 3rd year. So it started out small. We'd had some donations and we thought, what should we do with these things? Because we were storing them and they didn't really have a purpose. And we thought, well, let's try and see. Maybe the kids that are coming to our programs will want to do some shopping. So the point was to have them super low cost, so that they were affordable. And then it's just kind of grown every year since. People donate stuff, and we put it out for the month of November, and they're able to do their shopping.
And since COVID-19, can you explain what precautions Big Brothers Big Sisters is taking for this to keep residents safe?
Yeah, so this year, obviously, we can't just leave the table where people can come in and mingle and shop, you know, whenever works for them, as we've done in the past. So this year, we're posting pictures of the table every day on Facebook and Instagram after 10 o'clock in the morning. And then people can either message our Facebook page, email me, or call the office and say, I'd like item number, whatever, because it'll be on the tag. And we'll set that aside for them and they can do curbside pickup, or they can call and book a time to come in and view the table and shop that way. And then that way we can control the number of people that we have in and just make sure that we're social distancing and all that kind of stuff.
And other than the Christmas shopping table, Big Brothers Big Sisters is also offering to do people's Christmas wrapping, right?
Yes. So people can drop off, give us a call, drop off their gifts that they want wrapped. They tell us who they're for and who they're from, and we'll wrap them. We have some elves that are very good at wrapping, and then we'll let you know when they're ready for pickup. And then it's you just make a donation when you pick up your gifts.
And how long until people can drop off gifts for this?
It started today as well.
And when does it end? Sorry for that.
I believe December 18th.
And for the wrapping, will there be gloves involved to avoid the spread?
Yeah, and we can let them sit for 72 hours after they're wrapped if people want us to. It's just whatever their preference is, and we'll, you know, case by case basis.
And do you expect to get lots of support from residents for this year during the holidays than previous years?
I think so. We've had lots of people inquire already about what we're doing for Christmas, so we're just happy to be able to do what we normally do, but in a modified way.
And is there anything else you want to add for residents to know about?
Yeah, so we have a few fundraising things that we're also doing. So starting this week, where we have ice melt that we're selling. It's Bear Tracks ice melt. And it's pet and concrete friendly. So they can order a pail from us. They can give us a call, and we have that available for $21. We have co-op gift cards that people can purchase in increments of $25, $50, or $100. And we have Panago pizza coupons. So those are $12 for a coupon, and you get a medium-sized pizza. So for any of these things that we've talked about today, people can just call the office, and if they have any questions or if they want to order or set up a time to come view the table, that's the easiest way to get in touch with us.
And are you guys looking for any volunteers at the moment as well?
Yes, so on the program side of things, we're just getting our in-school mentoring program going virtually. So if people have time for about a 30-minute visit once a week with a child at one of the schools, they can do it from the comfort of their home, from their office, on their phone. It's going to all be done virtually this year during the school year, so it will just run on school days and during school hours. And then as well, we have our Big Brother, Big Sister program, which can run virtually or in person right now, depending on everyone's comfort level. And we are always accepting volunteers for those as well.
Perfect. So thank you so much for joining us today, Jacqueline.
Thank you.
Well, I'm joined today with Michelle Hamilton, a registered psychologist with Beyond Balance here in Lloydminster. Now, Michelle, of course, with the weather changing and the holidays coming up fairly soon, we're talking now today about seasonal affective disorder. So for those that aren't too familiar with it, what is seasonal affective disorder?
Seasonal affective disorder is really a rather common form of low mood, or sometimes to the point of depression, that is related to the seasonal changes, in particular, most often in the fall and winter months, a recurring pattern of low mood and depression associated with that time cycle and seasonal cycle. Very likely related to the reduced amount of sunlight and to the reduced amount of activity that many people who live in colder regions like Canada are likely to experience.
What are some well-known symptoms when it comes to seasonal affective disorder?
Well, it would be characterized by certainly low mood, loss of energy, feeling kind of lethargic, or just basically lack of energy, loss of interest in things that used to interest you, and feeling sluggish. Many times people who are low in mood feel pretty irritable and feeling inclined towards using carbs and cravings like food is another component. People often seem to crave a lot more carbohydrates in the winter months, and that's another important thing. Common changes to appetite, to either sometimes eating less, feeling no appetite, but I think in SAD it's more commonly an increase in appetite. Problems with sleeping, feeling disconnected, and for people with more severe instances of seasonal affective disorder or pre-existing depression and mood disorders, there can be a worsening of symptoms that in cases that would be more inclined to be hopefully working with a doctor, the potential for feeling hopelessness, and for some folks, the thoughts about death or suicide. Okay, obviously, when people are experiencing depression at any point in time, and especially at this time of year, to be very mindful of themselves and the people that they care about, to monitor for symptoms that are worsening or that are becoming problematic, and be prepared to seek out the advice of your family physician or a psychiatrist if you have access to one, and certainly the importance of talking to someone, a counselor or a psychologist, who can help you understand what you're experiencing and support you in taking proper care of yourself.
How do you think it'll look this year for some people that do suffer from this disorder because of the COVID-19 pandemic? Is it going to have a bigger effect on people this time around?
Well, yeah, I'm afraid there is a real combination of factors this fall and leading into winter that could make this a really challenging year. I think there's all kinds of, information through statistics that's coming forward, but we can all kind of relate to how we ourselves are feeling and some of the people we've talked to with COVID, and the lack of connection with people, the social isolation and the fear and the uncertainty, I think all in itself are going to be a real challenge to mental health this year. So all the more reason to be really careful and planning ahead and setting some intentions for making sure that, number one, you're getting enough physical exercise. In Canada, when things get cold out, we usually hibernate a lot more. We've got to think about ways to be out and active in as much as possible in the sunshine or in nature and accessing fresh air. So changing up our routines to ensure that we can be outside during the short little window of sunlight, I think, is one of the most important things that I will be doing and will want to encourage people to do. Okay. Also, to look for ways that we can have face-to-face contact with human beings in our circle. So as much as because of the COVID social isolation, we may not be able to see in person family and friends, but if we do have someone that we connect with in the workplace or in our home, make sure we're getting enough face-to-face, really engaged, attuned interaction so that we are experiencing that need that humans have for social connection.
Now, are there any other additional thoughts or advice that you want to add on top of what you've already just said about how people could deal with seasonal affective disorder with the COVID pandemic?
I think that, as I said, I think that there's a lot of common elements of the changes that people experience during the winter months. So it may not be necessarily an official diagnosis of seasonal affective disorder. And either way, I think there's a few other important things I'd suggest that people do to sort of proactively support their mental health. So as I was saying, in addition to exercise, sunlight, and human contact, I want to also encourage that people might consider looking into vitamin supplements at this time of the year and throughout the year, vitamin D, vitamin C, and probiotics, as well as omega-3s. I'm not a doctor, but I've done enough research into some beneficial supplements for mental health, and I myself would frequently use and encourage people to make sure they're getting these kinds of supplements, especially through the winter months.
And lastly, how can people reach out or get help if they do need it?
The effects of COVID on mental health is real, and many people are struggling. There are all kinds of various mental health options available in our region. Some are covered through healthcare and so therefore free. Some, like psychologists in private practice, are not covered through provincial healthcare. But many folks who have employment and benefits have access to a certain number of dollars per year that they can put towards the services of a psychologist. So I would just really encourage people, if you're struggling, reach out for help.
Well, Michelle, I really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for giving us some insight on, more about this disorder, because I know it affects a lot of people. So thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on Primetime Local News. Have a great night.